Merhabalar, my friends, and welcome back to Turkey, one of my favorite places in the entire planet. Today I'm in Istanbul, one of my favorite cities in that said planet as well, and today we're looking at the ever-evolving history and people of Istanbul, of the former city of Constantinople. So today we're starting at the Molla Zeyrek Mosque with a very interesting story, and then we're heading to Fatih, which is this ever-changing neighborhood right in the heart of Istanbul, and it's home to one of the largest Arab immigrant populations, especially from Syria and Yemen, here in Turkey. So if that sounds good and you want to see a little something that most travel vloggers won't show you, come along, let's do it, yalla. Whew. I love Istanbul. This place is so full of life, so full of spirit. And just being back in these old streets with the beautiful wood houses, with the beautiful mosques, with the beautiful sounds of a beautiful country is just fantastic. So, I'm starting off just real quick at the Molla Zeyrek Mosque. And why is this place interesting? Well, if you look at it, it doesn't really look like a mosque. And you would probably be right. Of course, they have the minaret, but other than that, it is not as it seems. As we know, Istanbul was once called Constantinople. There's that famous song. And that being said, Istanbul is built on top of Byzantium, which was basically you can think of it as the Eastern Orthodox version of the Roman Empire. So the Romans, of course, liked to build lots of churches. So what we have here is a 12th century Byzantine style church. If you go to anywhere in the Balkans, or you go even anywhere in Italy and Greece, you'll see the same kind of styles that you would find here. But what they've done under the guise of the Ottomans is that they took all of the churches that once filled this land and they turned them into mosques. This style of building you can find all over the former Roman Empire, and it's just really interesting that it's here in one of the oldest neighborhoods of modern day Istanbul. What I love also is that they have a lot of street dogs, and this is where they come to hang out. Hey buddy. The street dogs in Istanbul are the most docile street dogs that I've ever seen. So if you're curious, they're never gonna bite you. They're very fat and lazy. Street cat. So the story of Istanbul is incredibly long and involves a lot of different people. But when you're in modern Istanbul, you can really feel it if you look for it. So this is a good example of this place. So we have our Molla Zeyrek Mosque, beautiful, you guys can see in the inside, and it is here for, let's say, 800, 900 years. And then as the history of this place changed, you can see on the other side more of your modern Ottoman influence. So here we have 1, 2, 3, and then 4 mosques here. This large mosque here is the Süleyman Mosque, which is one of the largest mosques you can find here in Istanbul, and it was built to commemorate Süleyman the Great, one of the conquerors of the Ottoman Empire over the Anatolian Peninsula. So that being said, you can really feel the history if you take a look, and there's a lot more under the surface than just Turkish people doing Turkish things in Turkey. We're talking thousands of years of many different people, and Turkish people are kind of the offshoot of all of that history, which is so very unique and so very cool in my opinion. One thing you'll definitely see if you come to Istanbul is historic controversies with regards to religion. And so just as the Ottomans took beautiful churches and made them into mosques, you find that places that were in the former Ottoman Empire have taken those mosques that the Ottomans built and either destroyed them, or sometimes you can see them turned into churches themselves. So there's this kind of back and forth between the Islamic world and the Christian world, and this is just one easy example. Now we're back on the main street. We're gonna head this way through this ancient arched facade. I'm actually not sure what it is. Past this beautiful Islamic learning house, and to Fatih, which lies just behind. Now we've officially made it into Fatih. You can see here, Istanbul is split up into different parts. So here's Fatih Belediyesi, so it's like region. So I want to talk about some simple misconceptions about the Turks. But first we'll look at the Kiztaşı, which is an ancient Roman era column that is just randomly right in the middle of this very normal looking Turkish neighborhood. So again, the Byzantines were here for thousands and thousands of years. You can think of the Byzantines as the offshoot brothers of the Roman Empire, and they were a Christian kingdom for a very long time. They spoke Greek as their main language, and the story of this part of the world, if you would go back 700 years ago, looks completely differently. It wasn't until the mid-1400s when the Turks came in through the other side of the Anatolian Peninsula, coming from Central Asia, and changed this land forever to what it would be today, bringing Islam, bringing Turkish culture, bringing Turkish food, and all of that other good stuff. Before we get into a little bit of the modern history and how the Syrian refugee crisis and how the Arab world's collapse in the last 10 years has really affected Turkey, I do want to debunk this kind of Arabs and Turks are the same people myth. So I heard someone say this the other day, and they were here in Turkey, and I was like, what? So saying that Arabs and Turks are the same people is saying that Russians and British people are the same people because they look kind of similar and because they both are somewhat Christian. I think that's a really good example, and it really couldn't be further from the truth, both historically speaking and in reality. Now, there's some overlaps, of course, in the culture and how Islam has shaped both the Arab world and the Turkish world. But other than that, very different. So as I turn the camera here so you guys can enjoy the beautiful streets of Fatih, I will explain to you the main differences. So Arabs come from Mesopotamia, or the Arabian Peninsula, and they have been in that region for a very, very, very long time, spreading influence through trade, through Islam all around the world. Turkish people, however, come from Central Asia. They are the ancient cousins of the Kyrgyz, of the Uyghurs in China, of even some ethnic groups in modern-day Russia. And they are these steppe people, these Central Asian steppe people that kind of conquered their way up until the Anatolian Peninsula and consolidating the tribes that lived in the Anatolian Peninsula under the Ottoman flag, which kind of created the modern idea of a Turkish identity. So that means that the Turkish language and Arabic are not similar at all. There's some similarities you can find because the Ottoman Empire absorbed lots of the Arab world for quite a long period of time, but they are very different. One coming from Asia, like deep Asia, and one coming from the Middle East. The Turks also were not always Islamic. The original tribes in the Central Asian steppe region converted to Islam quite a long period of time ago, but before that there were also Christian Turks. There were Turks that believed in Buddhist practices that came in through Mongolia. There were also Turks who believed in, you know, kind of pagan ritualistic things. So Islam became the banner under which the Turks that conquered this part of the Anatolian Peninsula were really under, and became the big influence in spreading Turkish culture around the world during the Ottoman Empire. Turkey is a result of that, but it is not certainly the founder of that, whereas the Arab world was really responsible for the founding of Islam and the spreading of Islam in the early days of Muhammad and all of those missionaries and the like. So Turks and Arabs, not the same people, lots of similarities, but not the same people. We've made it to the middle of Fatih, and this is one thing that I love that the Turks do. The Turks love to take care of animals. So they, here this is all the old lavash and the old bread and croissants that obviously people didn't buy. And they set it out here for the birds to come and to eat. So you'll see lots of pigeons, for example. There's like a massive group of pigeons over here. And the Turks love taking care of cats, love taking care of dogs. And this goes back to an old Ottoman tradition where the Sultan once had a doctrine that said under Islam, the Turks or the Ottoman citizens should take care of animals like they take care of their Islamic brothers. So you can still see this, and if you look at street animals, if you haven't been in a country with street animals, by far the street animals in Turkey look the best. They look cared for, they don't look emaciated, and that all goes back to the fact that the Turks love the animals. Now it's time to talk about a little bit of modern Turkey. So walking into Fatih, it doesn't really feel that different than Istanbul, but if you look and you listen, it is different. So the first thing you'll see is Arabic writing in a lot of the stores, because a lot of Arabic speakers, although they come and they learn Turkish, a lot of them aren't very good at Turkish. And sometimes when you're coming from the Arabic world, you can't necessarily read well in the Latin letters. So you'll see a lot more Arabic. The secondary part is if you really listen, I know a lot of foreigners can't distinguish between Turkish and Arabic, but they really don't sound alike. Just walking around this area, you can really hear a lot of Arabic being spoken by people. A lot less Turkish, let's say, than if you were in the central part of Istanbul. And then the last part that you'll really notice is the propensity of hijabs, or women wearing very traditional Islamic clothing, and also men wearing more traditional Islamic clothing goes a little bit higher. So those are things to pay attention to when you travel, and it's a really important part of really experiencing the world. Wow, it's one of the largest doner kebabs I've ever seen. In front of my second found Byzantine era mosque, I think it would be advantageous of me to tell you the story of modern day Fatih and what's going on here. So, the Syrian refugee crisis comes out of the Syrian civil war starting in 2011. Many people don't realize on a map that Turkey shares a large border with Syria and a minute border with Iraq. So as the situation devolves over 2012, 2013, 2014, many Syrians, as their homes are being destroyed, their livelihoods being completely ruined, and having nowhere to go, many people took the long and arduous journey to get out of there by heading to Turkey. This is the same for Iraq, and it even compounded worse when ISIS really started taking the reins of the region in 2015, 2016. So there were original estimates. Ooh, we got it. There were some original estimates of the amount of Arabs from Syria, from Iraq, that made it to Turkey. Some low estimates say about 1 million, some high estimates say upwards of 3 to 4 to 5 million made it to Istanbul at one point. The issue is that Turkey has a strong economy sometimes. Right now they're experiencing some pretty bad inflation, but the influence or the influx of thousands and thousands and thousands, if not millions of people into your country can be a really destabilizing force. So many people came to Istanbul trying to seek asylum in other countries, whether it was Canada, the United States, Western Europe, even other parts of the Arab world, but many got stuck here. So Istanbul, in a lot of places, basically got stuck with millions, if not hundreds and thousands of refugees that had to seek asylum here. As the world sort of watched as ISIS, aka Daesh, completely destroyed two countries, and as two presidents ineffectively fought civil wars in Iraq and Syria, Turkey was really the front line, if not the worst affected country by this crisis, that had nothing necessarily to do with it. So Lebanon also, extremely troubled country now, at one point had 25% of their population as Syrians who were seeking refuge in Lebanon. So obviously a big issue, and it still is felt today, as many of these refugees from Syria, from Iraq, and now from Afghanistan have really nowhere to go. And so Istanbul and other parts of Turkey, like Bursa, have become their de facto homes. And now you can see vibrant communities of, we can call them Levant Arabs, living here in Istanbul, which is changing the culture in interesting ways. The first way that we're seeing it shape the culture is that there's just a greater presence of Arabs all over Turkey, who are bringing their food, who are bringing their language, who are bringing the effects of their lifestyle, which creates a city with great food options. Now you can find delicious Iraqi, Syrian, Yemeni, Saudi, and all these other Arab countries' food. You can also find some mosques now being built in the style of the Arab world, and also a lot of money coming in from those countries for people who are supporting the people who are now living here, raising families, opening businesses and the like. You can also find a lot of Turkish second language speakers, so the Turkish language has become very learned amongst these people because they need to be able to work here. So if you listen carefully, you can hear lots of lots of people speaking Turkish with a very thick Arabic accent, which if you walk around this area, and especially if you go to the Grand Bazaar, a lot of the workers there aren't even Turkish anymore. Lots of them are Syrian or Iraqi. The second part of this goes with Islamic conservatism. So while people think that Syrians and Iraqis are all very conservative, it's just not true. There's lots of secular Syrians and secular Iraqis that don't really bring that religious context to their life. But the reality is the great amount of people coming from that world are quite conservative. And with a conservative president here in Turkey who's pushing Islamic teaching in school, who's pushing a lot of Islamic practices and the re-Islamization of Turkey after we could say the westernization that was in the 1920s, 1930s, the city can become a little bit more conservative. So here in Fatih, you see a lot more hijabs, you see a lot more, you see a lot less women walking around by themselves. The vibe is just a little bit different, especially at night, and it feels very Arabic. So being here in the day is certainly different, and I think also because it's the winter, it's just, you know, it's a little bit dead. But the last time I was here, it was very packed with people buying and selling, yelling the way that they do a little bit in the different style, what we saw in Morocco, you know, how they do it in markets and everything. And you can see this sort of change in culture that's happening in a pocket of Istanbul. Now, many Turks who are, for example, internationalists who have lived abroad, who like the Western lifestyle that they have here, the very free and open society that they have, obviously not a big fan of this, but the Islamic conservative community has a lot of money behind it, it has a lot of power, and in cities like Bursa, which 50 or 60 years ago wasn't all that conservative, now you can see people wearing full niqabs and burqas. You can see a lot of people, a lot of women not out in the streets, and the shape and face of these cities are changing for better or for worse. So walking down the main drag here in Fatih, you can really see that the communities that lost so much during these wars are trying to sort of repair what they've lost, but here in Istanbul as opposed to back home because they can't go back. So right here we have like a falafel place. Here we have a nargila and shisha place, which some people think it's very Turkish to smoke a lot of nargila, but that's really a Middle Eastern thing. And yeah, the vibe is just very different. So I guess the question is, how is it now? What's going now? But and I'll answer that, but first, this is great. You guys have to see this. This is a killer situation. It's a whole beef truck. So today, what is the situation with Syria, with Iraq? Well, it's getting a little bit better, but it's still not really that good. The border with Syria is still a big problem, and the provinces in Turkey that border Syria are under high alert. They're very militarized. So there was a little bit of fighting even between Syrian rebels and the Turkish military, some shelling, some bombs were dropped. So still a very tough situation. I was down there, you guys can see my video here of when I went to Diyarbakir in the kind of like Kurdish zone of Turkey. Really tough experience. Met a lot of people who were really going through tough times. But they were happy to be safe to be in Turkey, which is the good news. But in Iraq, things are definitely getting a little bit better. They're opening up tourism next month, so a lot of people are very excited to go explore Iraq, which is interesting. And what does it mean for Turkey? What's the end result here for the Turkish country and for Istanbul? Really hard to say what the future will hold here. Will it become more conservative? Will it become more Arabic? Will it become something in the middle? Will it become nothing and to just kind of keep living on as it's lived for thousands and thousands of years? I probably think the last one. Things definitely change over time, and this is just one more chapter in the very long and complicated history of such a historic and beautiful country. So I think the only thing left to do is to go to the food streets and get some tasty Arabic snacks. Let's do it. Found a nice little restaurant. We've got the donor machine. We've got some little snacks going on over here. Oh, very good. Salaam alaikum.
Alaikum salam, I love you.
So after speaking with the owner, this place is owned by a couple Syrian guys. So we're trying some Syrian kibbeh. That's what we got. All right, so here we have the kibbeh. There it is. It's normally fried kind of bulgur wheat on the outside, and then on the inside they have some meat. So let's cut into this. The question is always, how does it taste? Super good. It's crunchy and crispy on the outside from the lentils. On the inside you've got like the minced meat, garlic, maybe a little onion in there. Super simple, super tasty. This is the guy. Are you the owner? Okay.
Arabic.
What city are you from?
Syria.
City. Aleppo, Damascus?
Halep.
Aleppo.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Shukran.
Goodbye. Goodbye, guys.
If you're a real foodie guy, this is really good stuff. But they actually make something very similar here in Turkey, which is probably like a loan from the food culture of the Arabs during the Ottoman Empire. They call it içli köfte. One of the two. Anyway, very similar product, but not as big. This one's really good. To get really Arab, I've taken us to a Yemenite restaurant. And the best part about this restaurant is that they have like little pods. So you can have your own private little meeting on the ground. So as I've said in many videos, a lot of cultures eat on the ground. So here we've got the rugs, we've got the very comfortable little things to lay on. We've got the napkin. So this is literally the table, and they'll bring in a little thing. So I've gotten a few different dishes for us to try. Such a vibrant and diverse cultures here you can find in Istanbul. Syrians, Iraqis, Yemenis, Saudis, Jordanians. And this is a new one for me. I've never had Yemeni food before, so very excited to check it out. So the food has arrived. We've got our fattoush salad. Got some sort of crispy fried bread on top, some balsamic, some veg, very classic. We've got a very nice little, looks like eggplant dip, a salsa type situation, very beautiful. And the pièce de résistance is this beautiful plate of spiced rice. And then inside here, there should be some chicken. So let's pop this guy open. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. Oh, I wish you guys could smell it. It smells amazing. The last thing that showed up is this beautiful, freshly made Yemeni bread. It's gigantic compared to my hand. And this guy, which, I don't know, different kind of bread, which should be topped with honey. Also beautiful. So this is how we do it in the Yemeni restaurants of Istanbul. Now we're battling the two breads. We have this one, which is the one that's a little bit more chewy, and the other one, which is a little bit more, let's say, crispy. Super good. Here we have a piece of the second bread. Different flavor, more charred. Oh my gosh, this rice, this beautiful yellow, orange saffron rice. It's so vibrant. Really good. Last, we're gonna go in for this chicken. I'm just gonna go in with the hands. Ooh, it's hot. Hot. I think a Yemeni guy would probably go for the chicken, go for a little rice, and to the mouth. Good stuff. So that's going to do it for our video today. I hope you guys learned something new. I hope you enjoyed the food. I know I love this area of Istanbul. It's so vibrant, there's so much going on, and it's so diverse, so wildly diverse. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. We've got some videos coming from all over Turkey, very excited about it, and then who knows where next. Catch you in the next one. Go to Shuruz from Istanbul.